In this still night, we return slowly to a distant time, a time shrouded in clouds, wrapped in silence, and gripped by bitter cold. The First World War was not merely a clash of armies, it was a long confrontation between man and nature. When the first spark ignited, the soldiers believed it would end swiftly. They said, "We'll be home by Christmas." But Christmas came and went. Months stretched into years, and the soldiers remained, waiting for an end that never came. The trenches they dug with their own hands became muddy homes. The rain never stopped. The mud clung to the ground, to their clothes, to their boots. No dry place, no warmth, no comfort strong enough to resist the cruelty of winter. Each day mirrored the last, endless waiting, repeating fear. At night, fog descended slowly, covering the horizon, blurring the world until all a soldier could see was a nearby shadow, and all he could hear was a distant echo fading into the rain. Sounds mingled, raindrops tapping on helmets, shells exploding far away, heavy breaths in the dark. Sleep became a distant dream. Clothes were soaked, bodies trembled, the earth froze beneath them. Blankets were torn, the night too long to endure. And yet, small moments kept them alive. A piece of bread shared between two men, a faint smile in the midst of exhaustion. A short song hummed quietly, disappearing into the darkness. Those small details were faint sparks lighting their endless night. Every morning, as the fog lifted slightly, the weary faces appeared. Hollow eyes, cracked lips, slumped shoulders. But still they stood, lifted their rifles, and returned to their posts, as if they were part of the earth itself. That first winter was not just cold, it was a trial of spirit and will. It revealed the weakness of the body but also the strength of endurance. For man, even in his weakest state, can still remain standing. And so the soldiers endured, through rain and frost, through silence and explosions, through fear and fragile hope. That winter never truly ended in their memories. It remained, a witness to the cruelty of war and the quiet resilience of humankind. Stay with us on this calm journey. And if this story touches something within you, join us for the rest. Subscribe to hear each tale told softly, as if it were a dream fading into the night. The trenches were not homes. They were open wounds carved into the earth, swallowing light and hope. Every inch of mud carried the memory of struggle, every wall soaked in the scent of gunpowder and damp fear. The soldiers called them the front, but in truth they were the edge of the world, a place where time itself seemed to stop. Day after day the horizon stayed the same, gray skies, shattered trees, and the endless rhythm of artillery. The air trembled with the constant heartbeat of war. Sometimes silence would fall, sudden, strange, almost sacred. And for a moment, a soldier could hear his own breath. Then, with no warning, the world would explode again. Letters from home were lifelines. Each word, each ink-stained line, reminded them that another world still existed. A world of mothers, wives, and children waiting for their return. But as the months dragged on, those letters came less often. And when they stopped entirely, silence became the only companion. In the midst of destruction, small rituals emerged. Men carved crosses into the wood of their rifles, whispered prayers before sleep, or stared at the stars searching for something, anything, that still felt human. Even in hell they built moments of peace. A cigarette shared between enemies, a nod across the battlefield when the fighting stopped. Brief, fragile glimpses of humanity beneath the madness. One cold evening, as the sun bled into the horizon, a strange calm descended. The guns fell silent. Across the no-man's land, a single voice began to sing, a quiet carol carried by the wind. Then another joined in. Soon the sound of silent night echoed softly between the lines. For a few sacred hours, the war itself paused. Enemies stepped out of their trenches, shaking hands, sharing food, even photographs. It was Christmas Eve, 1914, the night when humanity defied war. But dawn came, the orders returned, The guns spoke again, louder than before, drowning out the song. That brief miracle was buried beneath the mud, like so many lives that followed. Years passed, but the war refused to end. Each season brought new battles, new faces, new graves. The young men who once marched proudly now moved like ghosts, their eyes distant, their voices low. They no longer fought for victory, but for survival. One more sunrise, one more heartbeat. And when peace finally came, the silence it brought was deafening. The survivors returned home, but the trenches followed them. In their dreams, in the rain, in the hollow echo of memory, the war never truly let them go. The First World War changed everything, nations, borders, hearts. It showed humanity, both its greatest courage and its deepest cruelty. And yet, in that frozen mud, something eternal was born. The reminder that even in darkness, man can still hold on to light. When the guns finally fell silent, the world exhaled, slowly, uncertainly. Across shattered cities and broken fields, a new dawn rose over a wounded earth. Millions had perished, and millions more carried scars that would never heal. The war was over, but the silence that followed was heavier than the sound of battle. Europe stood like a ghost of itself. Villages reduced to ashes, forests turned to graveyards, rivers red with the memory of sacrifice. The Great War had ended empires, rewritten borders, and reshaped what it meant to be human. For the first time, people saw the true cost of progress. The same hands that built machines of innovation had also built machines of death. Science, industry, and strategy, once symbols of advancement, had been twisted into tools of destruction. But out of that devastation came lessons carved into history: the fragility of peace, the danger of pride, and the strength of compassion. Doctors who once worked in field tents returned home and built modern medicine. Engineers who forged weapons began designing bridges, hospitals, and cities. Mothers who buried their sons demanded a world where such a tragedy would never happen again. And yet, history has a way of forgetting its own pain. Only 2 decades later, the world would ignite once more. The lessons of the Great War faded like echoes in the fog, but the stories, the voices of those who lived and died, still whisper through time. When you walk through an old battlefield or stand before a monument carved with names lost to memory, listen carefully. You can almost hear the faint echo of boots in the mud, the murmur of men speaking softly beneath the rain. They are still there, in the silence between the wind and the earth. The First World War was not just history. It was a mirror, showing us who we were and warning us who we could become again. So remember the men who endured that endless winter, who fought not for glory, but for each other. Remember their courage, their fear, and their hope. Because in the end, the greatest battle was not between nations, but within the human heart.